Today, we are going to explore something that we actually spent a good part of 2019 exploring in some depth. But what strikes me is that this model, this picture that we're going to look at today, is absolutely critical, not only for weathering difficult times, but also for informing how we create the next normal at Althea, in our families, in our communities, in our own lives, and for our health and well-being. So stay tuned for the recap. We're going to start with a little bit of breathing and getting centered, and of course a reading. So let's take a breath. Let's slow down. Let's close our eyes, and I'm going to get situated here. So eyes closed. Big breath in. Big breath out. Something like a sigh. Something like a release. Again, big sigh. Feel yourself slowing down, settling down, coming into your center. As you find stillness and silence, let's just take a moment to connect with what we feel grateful for today. And it could be short-term, simple things. Grateful for shelter, grateful for food, grateful for friendships. Could be bigger things. Grateful for nature. Grateful for another day of life. Just take your time and just start building that, not just that list of what you feel grateful for, but more importantly than a big list, move into the energy, the feeling of gratitude. And as you go through this list, a very helpful exercise is to pick one thing that keeps coming up or one thing you come back to that feels very important to you, very special, and then really move into the energy of that gratitude. Like picture that thing or that person or that place. Remember how you feel when you're with it. Feel the energy. And breathe it into your body. Could be gratitude for a simple thing, but we're going through that gratitude like a portal into the energy of the heart. And now letting it flow and grow inside you. Imagine you can move that energy of gratitude and appreciation to every cell, every bone, every muscle, every fiber of your being. Really commit to that, no matter what's stressing you out today, no matter what's missing, no matter what you wish were going on. Just find this energy, this living feeling inside you, and build it and breathe it and move it throughout. So take your time with this. And then we're going to do a little reading here. It's number 16 from the Tao. Empty your mind of all thoughts. Let your heart be at peace. Watch the turmoil of beings, but contemplate their return. Each separate being in the universe returns to the common source. Returning to the source is serenity. If you don't realize the source, you stumble in confusion and sorrow. When you realize where you come from, you naturally become tolerant. disinterested but amused, kind-hearted as a grandmother, dignified as a queen. Immersed in the wonder of the Tao, you can deal with whatever life brings you. And when death comes, you are ready. Well, at the heart of that, that is really that is really the essence of what we are about in our Althea community. It's about having a relationship to self that connects us to Source in such a way that all the troubles and the distractions of life fall into place. Some will disappear. Some will dissipate. Some will continue regardless of how centered we find ourselves in the Tao or the spirit or the oneness of life. And yet, what happens when we return to that core center is our priorities become clear. Who and what we are is reminded and reinvigorated. And we are able to make choices from a place of purposefulness rather than a place of conditioned reaction or wounded reaction or for that matter, just our moods or the passing situation of the day. One of the things that we discover as we return to the center and then carry that into life is what we need to feel vital, to feel informed, and to feel engaged. What we need to feel vital, to feel informed, and to feel engaged. Now, for a lot of us, we've been answering this question kind of from the outside in. How much do I need to pay the bills? Do I need certain support doing things in my life? Do I need a romantic interest? Do I need a certain number of friends? Do I get to watch the shows I like and eat the food I like? And it suddenly turns into this sort of strange inner dialogue about preferences. And so much of those are mixed, right? Those are a mixture of conditioned comforts, soulful comforts, and habits. So what we're going to look at now is the essential areas of life that we must invigorate to find true resilience and wellness no matter what we face, and the core elements for our lifestyle as we build the new normal, or the next normal, as you might call it. Once again, before we take this next step, I want to remind you that today, if you have questions, Susan is not going to be able to email them to me. That was why we were late. I don't have my device that I get my questions on. But if you put them up in the little bubbles, who knows? Despite how bad my eyesight is, I just might be able to lean in and and see what your question is. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe Susan will find a way to get my attention through the little comment bubbles that come up. But more significantly, you can post your questions, and it's important for you to share them with each other so that people see what you're thinking about, what you're feeling about, what you're dealing with. And then, of course, I can always answer them in written form later. So, the 6 things that we're going to talk about really came to me at a kind of convergence of two areas of my life and experience that actually are very relevant today, which is kind of curious. So the first has to do with digital dependence, and the second has to do with travel, which is kind of funny because right now, while I'm recording this at this moment in history, billions of us are digitally dependent more than ever, and billions of us are no longer traveling or able to travel. That's interesting. So how do these two things come together? Well, it started some years ago when my son was at a small a private school that he had a scholarship to, and it was very focused on nature, contemplation, community building. And one night we were listening to a speaker for the parents that was talking about the impacts of screens and a highly digitally dependent lifestyle. And the longer I listened, to the effects on the brain and the attention span, it began to overwhelm me with just how many things come at a cost when we are so digitally dependent. There's a lot of harmful side effects, for lack of a better word. But then I spent the next few months actually doing research and even interviewing experts. I set up phone interviews with some of the leading psychologists and scientists and doctors in the country to better understand what they were recommending around this topic. At the time, I was thinking I was going to write a book just about this topic, and so that's why I was doing the research. What started to emerge, though, out of the conversations was a secondary theme. You see, they all had some insight as to the cost or consequence of being digitally dependent. But there was something softer in the conversation for most of them. In other words, we would lead with the quantitative data. Here's the statistic around hours of screen time and how it affects mood or how it affects rates of depression or anxiety. But somewhere to the middle of the conversation, all of the experts, scientists, doctors, psychologists, all presenting quantitative numerical information, they all kind of shifted to a more reflective attitude that was less about the cost of a highly digitally dependent life, and it was more about the impact of what it's replacing. Now think about that. The real problem that they all focused on in the end, that felt most important to all of them in the end, was less the actual side effects of being directly engaged with your screen and more the indirect cost of what the screen time was replacing. So think of it this way. More harmful, right? More harmful than, let's say, the blue light of the screen affecting your melatonin levels or your ability to get a good sleep was the fact that people were getting less exercise and less fresh air. And that was having a bigger cost or consequence in terms of sleep. Less was the concern about effects on mood and relationship because of the preoccupation with the number of followers or likes or only seeing people through a screen. But greater was the concern that people just weren't getting together, that they weren't present with each other, that the phone was distracting themselves, even in meetings, that they were forgetting more and more what it was like just to spend a whole afternoon with someone with no agenda. And so little by little, I found myself turning my attention towards, let's not focus on the technology itself. Let's not necessarily label it good or bad. And maybe we can even pause in the evaluation of all these costs. Let's just ask the question, what is it that technology cannot do? What is it that technology cannot replace? What is it about being human that our digital dependence is blurring, hiding, binding? And so I started to build a kind of list, like, no matter what they develop through artificial intelligence, through virtual reality, through all the algorithms you can imagine, what will they never replace? And the list started to grow. And at some point, kind kind of got sloppy, 12 things, 13 things, 20 things, back down to 2 things. But what I found is that there are six core areas of human life and wellness that technology cannot replace, and yet somehow seem inextricably linked, connected to our greatest capacity to feel peace and joy and balance and well-being as people. Here's the twist. The way that came clear to me was that I took my list of things that we need to be fully human that technology can never replace on my last trip to Africa. And I took it in a journal so that I could think about it while we traveled and took the 18 hours of plane rides to fly to Cape Town from Denver. I took it so that I had it, to think about at night and in the back of my mind while we were on safari in this mindful wellness adventure. And it started to become clear that the reason why the travel experiences were always so important to me, why travel is so important to so many people, and why the travel workshops and retreats that I used to run and will run again were so potent, was specifically because they connect us. Experiences of travel connect us to some of the core elements of this list. What it means to be fully, uniquely, distinctly human. So maybe you remember this. Last year at the Althea Center in 2019, we actually dedicated the first 6 months of the year to explore each of these 6 principles. 6 internal qualities that are essential to the human experience. 3 of the 6 internal to the human experience, and 3 of the 6 more about our external relationships. And what we found was that the deeper we went into each of them, even though only a list of 6, there was so much richness in each. We could spend 4 weeks of a month, 5 weeks of a month looking at any one of them, including workshops, including discussion groups. And the amazing thing to me, I don't think it's prophetic particularly, but certainly a grand synchronicity, is that this list in particular, to me, is literally our recipe, our map for the way forward right now in our lives, our homes, our communities, and in our world. If you want to know what you might consider is essential for your new normal, your next normal, if you want to have a sense of what our planet needs from humanity, it is for us to be more fully human. The idea of being fully human is something different than I think what we think of when we struggle with the human journey, the human experience, how hard it is to be human, and it certainly is. But we live in a world, many of us, depending where you live and who you are in your culture, but we live in a world that has kind of narrowed the lens on what it means to be human. We have narrowed the lens on what we emphasize, what we educate, and what we reward. If you look at the average school system, you will find that it is the impersonal aspects of being human that are emphasized. That which can be tested, that which can be standardized, that which can be transmitted through a screen. Really, the fact that our educational system could suddenly and magically go online in a week was both remarkably wonderful and deeply disturbing. It's wonderful because our teachers have been creative, resourceful, dedicated, and many of them have worked at ways to bring the material to life. That is the beauty of humanity, and that is the heart of education, the teacher, the lived relationship. But the disturbing side is that we are in a system where there's no consequence to not being able to go outside, where because things are programmed, because things are statistically oriented, because things are standardized, they can precisely be translated quickly and easily to a screen. So there's a catch-22. And ultimately what we're talking about today is finding a balance by restoring the aspects of who and what we are that have been underplayed, underemphasized, lost. So let's go through the list. Typically we wrap up in about 15 minutes or so, and then I'm going to lean in squinting to the screen, and if you have questions or comments, you can put them there, and we'll just do it the old-fashioned way. So let's first look at the the 3 external forces. Okay? So you could also think of these as 3 relationships. So we have nature, community, and sensuality. Nature, community, and sensuality. Now, what does it look like in your life? What it looks like is you have to ask yourself, do I invest time, energy, and priority in any of these things and every of these things? How often do I do it? And I would say we need to make these things priorities every single day. Now, if you say, but I can't really get out, I have limited access to parks or forests. You know, that's true for millions of people. But can you sit on a bench outside your apartment? Can you walk around the block? Can you open the window and just stand and feel the sunlight on your face? There are many simple ways we overlook of engaging any of these principles. So it's not all or nothing. It's all about degrees and doing the best you can with what you've got. So, to be clear on what these are. For nature, okay, we're going to do the external 3 first. For nature, we're simply talking about having an intentional, mindful, engaged relationship with the natural world every day. And that could mean tending to your plants, being with your animal, including nature in your prayers, going outside, being immersed in nature when possible, parks, forests, water, whatever it is, and most significantly, maintaining and retaining a consciousness about the importance of nature while you do it. Cultivating a living, ongoing, real-life dialogue with the natural world. Talk to it, listen to it, and feel its precious importance to yourself every day, and that includes even when you eat your food and go shopping. It's all nature's bounty for you. So let's go to the next one. The next one that I want to talk about is community. What do we mean by community? Community is not the same as online connection. And community is not even necessarily the same as being part of a group. We have to be careful that we don't mistake having followers or a certain volume of friends or attending something as a true experience of community. The kind of experience of community that I'm talking about is engaged. It's one in which you show up with open heart and open mind, and you are willing to learn through community, through each and every person that is involved in your experience, especially the ones you struggle with, especially the ones that frustrate you, especially the ones that you don't understand or you wish weren't a part of your community. Because a deep engagement of community is one in which you value connection and relationship as fuel for your journey. as a setting for not only being affirmed and loved, but also challenged, enriched, and even tested so that you see where you resist things in yourself and in the world. So community implies a quality of deep personal engagement. Make sense? And by the way, that can be done online. That can be done with just one person or a couple of people. And that can certainly be done in larger groups as well. One thing you might consider, depending on who you are listening, if you're a part of the Althea community, an example would be, have you reached out to other people in the community? Have you made it a priority to join things like this and other classes and Sundays, and not just watch the recording, but show people by your number, by your comments, by your little floating hearts that you are there, that you care? Have you even invited community members that you wanted to connect with or you missed connecting with to maybe have an email exchange, or maybe get on the phone, or even have a video call and just have lunch together virtually? Community is less about volume of people and more about quality of relationship. All right, next one we have sensuality. Sensuality is one of these great words that is, I guess, like all of these things, thought of in the extreme. So most people hear sensuality and they think romance and sex. Well, I think those are great ways that we can explore and experience sensuality, our senses. But sensuality is so much more than that. Sensuality is about knowing that there are other ways of knowing. It's about knowing that we are not just our thoughts, we are not just our emotions, but we are all of our senses. We are the ability to taste, touch, smell, and more. We can sense energy, we can sense distance, we can sense height, we can sense temperature, we can sense time. So an engagement of our sensuality means that we reduce the primacy of the mind in our lives, that we affirm that our senses are at the very least 50% of every experience and every decision and every relationship. I mean, that's giving heart and mind, emotion and mind, the other 50%, which is kind of crazy. If you consider, even scientifically, that we have easily more than 20 different sense organs or senses, ways of sensing the world, to think that thoughts and emotions would constitute 50% of our life when there's at least 20, some say 29, other ways of gaining information, experiencing the world? I don't know. And if you look at older cultures, what you'll find is that the emphasis is actually on the senses. That the emotions are just temporary evaluative eruptions that give us a reading on how we relate to something. And that thoughts are frequently distracting and diluted. To be with your body, smell the coffee you drink or the tea you drink. Notice the texture of your food in your mouth. If you are snacking your brains out, fine, but taste that saltiness. Listen to that crunchiness. Smell it. Be mindful with everything you do with your body, and it will reveal a new quality of peace, a new quality of connection, and a new quality of listening and learning. So be with your senses. All right, we're moving into the last three, and these are the internal three. So we have intuition, energy, and emotion. Intuition, energy, and emotion. And we can start by talking about, it's funny, I don't see a lot of people holding up pieces of paper when they do online classes, but I think it's great. I think it works just fine. Anyway, that's my little side note. Yay, paper. And yes, it's recycled paper. So emotion. What we're talking about there is that, of the things that dominate our lives, thoughts and emotions really ruling the roost, most of us haven't had a lot of education around how to experience our emotions in a constructive way. More often than not, emotions just want to be felt. Whatever we think they're about is typically just a distraction or a delusion of some kind. I said this, you said that, you texted this, I texted that. What did you mean? I know what you meant. Don't tell me how to feel. Good Lord. That's not what emotions are for. You have your emotion and it's giving you a reading. It's giving you feedback. It's telling you, we're on track. Ooh, we're not on track. There's harmony. There's discord. But it's never saying right or wrong. It's never saying good or bad. It's asking you to look deeper and to move the energy through. Look deeper, move the energy through. We move the energy through by feeling, just feeling it. Feel frustrated and angry? Be frustrated and angry. Don't act from it. Feel sad and despondent? Great. Feel sad and despondent. Don't act from it. Energy, moving, emotions. Think of it that way. Feel to heal, express your emotions energetically, ceremony, therapy, both, right? But more significantly, and this is the last point that's critical, cultivate this understanding that emotions are really the gateway to the true heart. The true heart is our spiritual heart, which loves and heals and is wise and giving beyond conditions. What keeps us from that is typically the conditional emotional life. So mastering emotional intelligence, learning to be with difficult emotions and moving beyond them into the domain of the spiritual heart is a profound, transformative step in any life. This really brings us to this conversation now about energy, because we've just talked about emotion as energy. And yet, once again, even though it's obvious that human beings experience the energy of life, we don't need to be taught it or trained in it to sense it. We say, well, there's something about that didn't feel right. Or I didn't like the energy of that place. Or I didn't like her vibe. We just speak with energy language because that's who we are. That's the nature of being human. You can't stop it. But was it cultivated? When you were in the 4th grade, did they give you an exercise in feeling the energy in the palm of your hands? Did they give you an exercise in 12th grade as you were studying biology and the life cycle of a tree? Did they ask you to go and sit with it, to talk to it, to listen to it, to feel its bioessence? Probably not. So, a life of resilience, wholeness, and wellness is always one that is connected to the perception, the sense, the acceptance, and the engagement of energy. The energy in the world around us. And uses that knowledge to make intentional, skillful, purposeful decisions about who we are, what we're doing, and what's next. Follow the energy. If you're ever trying to make a difficult decision between two things, for example, a simple favorite exercise of mine to illustrate how energy works is you sit quietly, you close your eyes, and you enter the energy of choice number 1. Create an imagination, see it, feel it, imagine it's happening. This is where I live, this is what I do. And how does that resonate inside? Then, shake it off, think of something else, open your eyes, tell a joke, close your eyes again, go into option number 2. Same thing. See it, picture it, feel it, details. Imagine it's happening right now. Imagine you to get up right now and do it. Pay attention to the energy in your body. Simple exercises like that reveal to us very quickly that subtle energy is real, and it's informing us and guiding us all the time. To stop and take a breath before you do something is just not the same as not. To stop and light a candle or do a smudge, cleanse yourself, is absolutely going to change the energy of a moment, internally and externally. So explore, engage, and connect with energy. The last on our list, and then we're going to be wrapping up unless you have questions. And yes, I'll be looking for questions if you have them. Intuition. Intuition. And it's funny because in some ways, it's all about intuition. You know, I've come to feel over the years that one of the reasons why the mindfulness movement is so significant, so powerful, is not just because it helps us create spacious awareness to be more peaceful and purposeful in the way we respond to things in life, but it's also because it makes room for our intuition. We develop a greater connection to the felt sense. The felt sense. And that means that we live with an ever-present awareness of and understanding of the fact that we are spiritual beings. We are energetic beings. And our intuition, thoughts without thinking, knowing without facts or information, is very real. And I would say the foundation of all knowledge. Even scientific information blossoms out of research, study, and experiment. But did you ever think about the foundation of that process? How do you come up with a hypothesis? For most scientists, it's not arithmetic. I did this, and I did this, and I did this. Therefore, this must happen. The leap right there between what I know and what I postulate, what I hypothesize, what I imagine, is partly, and in some cases entirely, intuitive. If you read stories about the life, history, and greatest achievements of great scientists like David Bohm, Niels Bohr, Max Planck, and of course the legendary Albert Einstein, you will find that all of them affirm that their greatest leaps forward were not arithmetic, step, step, step. They were intuitive. They had a feeling that something might be worth trying, a feeling that something might be so. In fact, Einstein himself died in the midst of his exploration of proving what was called the unified field theory, the idea that everything is energy and that everything at some level can be thought of as alive, connected, communicating. And the way we communicate with things that don't have voices, intuition. The way we know things in our gut, beyond our experience, intuition. So, this is a lot to think about. It's a lot to engage, and yet, in some ways, it's straightforward because it's really just reclaiming the essence of who we are and who we've always been. So, before we close, I'm going to take a look on my screen. I don't see. If anyone has a question right now, you're welcome to put it up. And if not, then in just a moment, we're going to take a deep breath and we are going to wrap up. So, one thing to reflect on while we're kind of waiting just to see if anyone's quickly scribbling a question is that there is an incredible interplay between what the Buddhists would call form and formlessness. Form is really the world of these many facets of being, and formlessness is really the open awareness of oneness, and that is where integration occurs at the center. And that's really That's really the target of a healthy, happy, healing life. A healthy, happy, healing life. It doesn't come by pursuing being happy. It doesn't come by pursuing healthy. It doesn't come by pursuing healing. It comes by pursuing being whole. And from wholeness emerges the tools, the perspectives, and all the ingredients we need to find the most vibrant experience of life possible. So on that note, let's close with another reading from the Tao. And this is number 11 in the Stephen Mitchell version. If you like, you can take a breath and close your eyes. We join spokes together in a wheel, but it is the center hole that makes the wagon move. We shape clay into a pot, but it is the emptiness inside that holds whatever we want. We hammer wood for a house, but it is the inner space that makes it livable. We work with being, but non-being is what we use. It's all right there. So I'm really grateful that you joined me today. I am seeing another post. Chris, all right. Good to see you're out there, Chris. Anyway, thank you, Chris. Thank you, one and all. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Scott. I don't see other names right now. I'm just grateful that we could hang out together. If you like this, hey, Scott. Peace, brother. If you like this, please share it. If it's helpful, please share it. If you haven't followed Althea's page yet, please do. Hey, Philip. Good to see you. And remember, I'm giving away a free book right now. You can check that out probably here. I don't know, maybe on my page or my webpage. Also, Althea, we want to keep doing this into the future. We believe our mission's important. If you can make a donation right now or sometime soon, Althea lives by your generosity, and we have important work to do in the world. So I'm sure you will see the donation link pop up. There you go. Susan did that. So once again, thank you, love you, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.